message in the chat box. And again, if we can ask questions after Sky, limited to one per person with the option of a follow-up. So when we're ready, we'll start with Carve Solikol from Sky.
Gareth, first of all, it's been an eventful couple of days. If we can just start on the pitch, we know that Joe Gomez injured his knee today. Can you tell us exactly what happened and how serious it is?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how serious it is because he's yet to have scans. What was upsetting was to see he was in a fair bit of pain, and fact was that there was nobody around him when the injury happened. So I didn't like that element of it. But we're just got to wait and see what the scans show, and we're all hopeful for him that it's not what it might be, but it's not a good situation. I don't see him being involved in the games with us, that's for sure.
When you said what might be, it sounds like it could be an ACL injury that would potentially keep him out for the whole season.
We can't speculate the exact nature of the injury. It's not possible until we've seen scans. So, as I say, my immediate thoughts are with him, and because he's had some difficulties with injury in the past. So we're hoping as much as we possibly can and praying that it's not going to be a long-term one, but we just have to see.
Just turning to the events yesterday.
Sorry, Carver, your signal's breaking a little bit.
What Greg Clark said.
Sorry, Carver, can you start from the top again? We didn't quite catch that.
Sorry. Yes, I'll start again. Yesterday was obviously a very bad day for the Football Association. What did you make of what Greg Clark said?
Well, I think, as he said himself, the terminology he used in a number of areas was not acceptable, and doesn't reflect the view of the FA, doesn't reflect what we as a team stand for. I don't think he had any alternative but to take the decision he did to resign. I have to caveat that a little bit. I think Greg, what's a shame for him in particular is that he's done a lot of work behind the scenes to support the diversity code, to make a lot of inroads into relationships around Europe. When we had the incidents in Montenegro and Bulgaria, he was at the forefront of supporting the players and lobbying with UEFA for change. Unfortunately, of course, he's going to be remembered for the comments he's made. There is a balance to that because I don't like to see individuals suffer as publicly as he has. But I repeat, what he said wasn't acceptable and there was no alternative but for him to go.
The Football Association has now been in existence for 157 years. Do you think it's time that the next chairman is black or female?
I think we have a lot of black and female staff at the FA, and they would all say that what they would want would be the right person for the role. And that could be anybody from any background, that could be anybody of any gender, but it has to be the right person. So I could easily grandstand here and say, yes, it should be somebody from one part of the community, but I don't think that would be correct either. So I think whoever comes in has to have an understanding of governance, has to have an understanding of operating at a high level at an important organisation. I must say that there are often a lot of names put forward, and it's easy in the background to have opinions on things without having any responsibility. What I admire about somebody like Paul Elliott is that he's committed himself to football administration. There are a lot of hours to that. There are a lot of meetings to attend that a lot of people don't want to do. So the reforms that Paul has helped to put in place over the last few years, I think, or over the last few months rather, deserve a lot of commendation. I don't know if Paul's the right person for the main role. That's not a decision for me. But I'm just pointing out the type of challenges that football administrators have to have and the type of qualities they have to have. It isn't for everybody. And a lot of the people that has proposed populist views don't really want to put the hours in and don't really want to put the hard yards in or have that responsibility. It's an enormous responsibility, and it will lead to a lot of criticism a lot of the time. So it's got to be a very particular type of person. And I'm highlighting Paul because I think I greatly respect what he's done within our organisation. But I repeat, I don't know if being the chairman would be the right position for him. But I think to be on the board would be a positive move for sure.
You finished there, Garvey?
How has Jude Bellingham settled in? And at 17, just one more. How has Jude Bellingham settled in? And at 17, do you think he's ready to play for England tomorrow?
Well, it's always interesting to see the reaction when we select a player, because people are immediately talking about other players without understanding why we've called Jude up. We could flippantly say, well, he's playing for a massive club and he's playing Champions League football. But there's actually a bit more to it than that. Positionally, he's playing in a two-man midfield at Dortmund, whether that's a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-3. So he's in the exact position that we lost a player in, James Ward-Prowse. But the bigger picture here is that at times we select older players to come in to challenge directly for competition for places. In this instance, we're giving a young player an opportunity to work with us, to spend some time with us, invest some time with him. He'll have a brilliant experience for a few days. If we can get him on the pitch and he gets some match minutes as well, that'll be a bonus. But we think it's part of what we've done over a long period of time in developing young players. So that's the approach we've taken to this England squad, and we think it's served us well. We think it's helped give young players experience that will benefit England in the long term. It's not a decision that he's a better player than one or two older players who I've seen mentioned, although those players don't play in the position that he plays. And that's a fact. You know, people will have a view of what a midfield player is, but there are very specific roles within midfield positions. But the bigger picture here is a great opportunity to bring another young player with us that is going to benefit England for the long term. Whether he stays with us for the full week, we'll decide after the game.
Can I just ask?
Sorry, there's a bad delay.
Can I just ask one? Sorry about that. Just one for Nick now. Nick, obviously, we know you're starting tomorrow. As far as you and the other goalkeepers are concerned, is Jordan Pickford the England number one, or do you feel that shirt is still up for grabs looking ahead to the Euros?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's number one at the minute. Now, if you look at the last 25, 30 fixtures he'd have played, probably 28 of them. So a person with that sort of record in the national team, I think, deserves to be called number one, has earned it. It's not happened overnight. It's happened over, 2-3 years consistent playing for your country. So I think it's fair to say that he's number one at the minute. Not that to say that doesn't change, whenever the time may be. So for a goalkeeper, you got to keep working and keep, like any player does, earning your right to be in the squad and, fighting hard to, make your way into the team.
And just the final one from me for Gareth. Gareth, obviously, Jack Grealish has been one of the standout players in the Premier League season. Is tomorrow the perfect opportunity to give him another chance to start?
Well, we've got 3 matches that, is quite possible he could start in any of those 3. For sure, he's going to play an important role for us in this camp. He's playing extremely well. The biggest thing for me, 2 things really. One, I talked a lot to Jack about end product. Last 22 games of last season, he was 1 goal. He's 4 goals in 7 Premier League games, 5 in all competitions this year. His assists are high. So the numbers that he's hitting now, when we were talking at the end of last season, the likes of Raheem, Marcus, 20 goals plus, Jack is hitting those figures this season. And that's a great step forward in terms of, we know his all-round game's always been good. To hit those numbers when you're an attacking player, really important. So he's doing that well, and his work without the ball is really improving as well. His pressing, his discipline on his defending. So I couldn't be happier with what he's doing. It's a really good moment for him. For sure, he's going to play a big part for us this week.
Thank you, Carve. Next, we'll move to Carrie Brown from BeanymanSports.
Gareth, we know that your players have led by example, talking about inclusion, especially in Sofia when you said they made a great statement. So I know that they spoke to you about events yesterday. What reassurance did you have to give them and to anyone else that would have heard those comments and felt disillusioned?
That, I felt it necessary. I'd spoken to them the day before about the diversity code and the work that had been going on. Obviously, Tyrone has been involved in the work behind the scenes, as has Jordan Henderson and Harry Kane. So we had spoken positively about that the day before, and I then felt it was necessary to explain that what had happened yesterday wasn't acceptable and didn't represent what we stand for as a team, and isn't a fair reflection on the FA. People have a view of the FA, and those of you who I know have a bit more insight into over 800 people that work at the FA. Across that spectrum, there are people from numerous national backgrounds, from different sexuality, members of the lesbian and gay community. It's as diverse an organisation as I've ever been a part of. And, so I think internally there was a lot of upset about what had been said. And I think Greg recognised that amongst all the other challenges that what he said yesterday would have provided, the upset internally was massive. So I know there's a view of what the forward face of the FA is, but as you well know, there are 800 people here, and it's a far broader organisation than that.
There have been question marks, though, raised today by former FA chairman about the board and the council and where they stand. The message is clear from this, isn't it? You have to get an education, and if you don't, you will be called into question.
Well, I think there have been messages all summer for all of us in society about educating ourselves, and I think many of us have done that and have learned a lot over the last 6 months in particular. I think there's a bigger message, really, as an organisation. We have to make change. We can't keep standing in front of the cameras talking about change and not enforcing it. It disappoints me a little bit that former chairmen speak, because they've had the opportunity to do that. So that's also, I think people need to be careful in those comments as well. But, I think it's clear we're talking about a lot of change as a society, and football has to be at the forefront of that. We have an opportunity to make difference. When I was involved in some of the discussions about the diversity code earlier this summer, my biggest point was that I've sat on lots of panels and done lots of talking and heard lots of talking. We need change, and change needs to happen.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll move to Fred Caldeira from Esporte Brazil.
Hi, Gareth. On the note of the unfortunate Joel's injury, most of your players, if not all of them, didn't have proper time to rest in between seasons, neither proper pre-season with their clubs. And now they're facing this number of games. Sometimes it's just a couple of days to try to rest and try to prepare. And on the top of that, we do expect that they perform highly week in, week out. Do you think that especially in this season, we in the football industry should demand less of the players? Is it possible to do any analysis without all of this context of this season?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke about this right at the beginning of the season. With Joe, a good example, we knew the load he's had in the last 6 weeks or so. So we gave him and the other players that have been in European matches who played Sunday an extra day's recovery. And yet still something like this has happened. So for me, there are lots of discussions about extra subs and things like that. But the bigger picture here was that governing bodies, broader authorities, everybody within the game needs to work together. There was an opportunity. We have a Winter World Cup in 2 years. There was an opportunity this year to think differently. The pandemic has thrown up all sorts of difficulties for people, but everybody's tried to cram the program into a smaller period, and nobody has given way, and people haven't collaborated enough. And we are going to see injuries, and it's a desperately sad situation, because when you see the impact on an individual, it hits home even more. So we're now trying to affect things in reverse or too late. A lot of these discussions should have happened in the summer. We could have delayed the start of the league. We could have delayed international football. We could have adjusted the calendar in its entirety and all worked together, and people haven't done that.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Simon Peach from the Press Association.
Evening. Question for each of you. First of all, Gareth, do you have any idea what's going on with the Iceland game venue yet?
So we will know more tomorrow, because my understanding is that discussions with government can only happen tomorrow. There is an alternative option if we can't play in England, and it looks as though taking the game to Germany would be the strongest possibility for that. But really we'll know more once there have been discussions with government, and of course they have to be based on the medical situation.
And for Nick, it must be, I know you've spoken about Jordan being the number one for the he's been number one for a while, but it must be a dream of yours to think that you could be lining up in what is basically going to be a home tournament. And also, as an English goalkeeper, how much extra pressure does that bring? Do you feel there is extra pressure on the English goalkeeper?
I'm not sure about extra pressure. I think there's pressure for every position in the squad, as there is competition in every position. And every player in this squad and who's not made this squad will be looking at the summer as, a home tournament and a massive opportunity to, take part in a massive event. And it's a life for us, a once in a lifetime opportunity. So, the lads in the dressing room here, and I know the ones outside the squad as well, will be doing everything they can, obviously, to make that final squad, because the opportunity is something that won't come up again for anyone.
Thanks, Simon. We've got time for two more, starting with Dom Smith from englandfans.org.
Sorry, it's englandfootball.org. I just want to get that in there.
Apologies, Dom.
No problem. It's for Gareth, actually. Gareth, a lot of England fans I've spoken to want to see 3-4-3 used against sort of the best elite sides, and 4-3-3 against teams that bed in a bit more. What do you make of that? Might we see a return to 4-3-3 tomorrow night?
Well, there are two parts to that. One is that we should always be open-minded to tactical change, and we've always done that over the 4 years. We've played various different systems that we think suit the players as best we can. There is also benefit to working with the system and improving it and reviewing it and finding out the nuances of it. We saw that in the last 5 matches, the last 4 matches, how we were able to progress our attacking patterns. So you don't have long to work with the team. And I think the best teams, normally teams that win leagues, normally teams that win tournaments, have a set way of playing that everybody understands and everybody knows. So I think flexibility can be good. We've done that at the right times. We must always have an open mind, because our best players who you want to get on the pitch can change. Form and progress can change who our best players are. So we'll always have an open mind to that, for certain.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dom. Next question, Alex Howell from BBC Sport.
Hi. With the sad death of Nobby Stiles and now news of Sir Bobby Charlton's condition, do you believe enough has been done to look into dementia around sport? And are you concerned for yourself and your players when there seems to be a clear evidence of increased risk for football players?
Well, I'm, of course, at my age, having headed a lot of footballs, I do have concerns. But I also recognised that whenever I took the field, I was taking that risk of injury, short or long term, and I knew that, and I would have always had, wanted to have the career and the opportunity to play, even if it had meant longer term there might be physical issues for myself or health issues. Most athletes would go that way, I think. That's not to undermine the situation, by the way. In terms of the link, there is research going on that's a little bit inconclusive at the moment, which is a bit frustrating for everybody, because we'd love to have a clear solution. And so, of course, it's a concern for everybody. We have to keep supporting that research. Part of the issue with dementia is age, and one of the positives of being involved in sport is that people tend to live longer. They're healthier, they live longer. And so there's a possibility that could be part of the link with the dementia as well. So unfortunately, we don't have all the answers we'd like at the moment. I know some of that work is going on in the background. But yeah, do I have concerns? Of course I do. I've had people in my own family who've suffered with dementia, and it's a terrible, terrible illness.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And we'll finish with one last one from Alex James from Lancs Live.
Hi, Gareth and Nick. Gareth, just on the keepers, you said last week you didn't feel anyone was putting Jordan Pickford under enough consistent pressure to be England number one. Is this a chance for Nick to do exactly that? And then for Nick, I guess that's exactly what you want, the opportunity to prove what you can do on the international stage.
Yeah, I mean, Nick has been first and foremost a fantastic part of why the squad have progressed and had a reasonable amount of success comparative to what England have done over the years in the last couple of years. He's been an incredible member of the squad, high performance level, low maintenance in terms of neediness, and sacrifices himself for the team at all moments. You couldn't ask for a better person to have in the group. He has had to be so patient to get game time, and we feel it's important he's getting that last month, this month, the game in Kosovo, because I recognise how difficult it is to travel as one of the goalkeepers who isn't starting all the time. That's a tough ask. A lot of goalkeepers have retired from that over the years, and I totally understand it. So we're hugely appreciative of having a goalkeeper of Nick's quality, who at the moment is just behind Jordan, but absolutely that fight is there, that push is there. I mentioned last week, I felt Jordan had earned the right to have our support, and I know Nick would rather be higher up the league table than they are at the moment, but that's temporary, and he's got a great habit of keeping the ball out of the net. That's a bit old-fashioned in terms of what people want from goalkeepers. They want them to start attacks, create attacks, juggle, do all sorts of things. But actually, there's something to be said for coming, collecting crosses, dominating your box, and keeping the ball out of your net with good saves. And he does that.